Number one on the review asks, or actually tells, to identify if the following are functions or not, and to explain why or why not. So when we're looking at telling if something's a function, we want to see if each input or each item in the domain has exactly one item in the range, maps onto one range thing. So the inputs here are 2, 7, 3, and 1. The input does not repeat, therefore an input cannot have two outputs. So therefore it's a function. It's okay that two different inputs have the same output. It's not okay that if um, two different outputs have the same input. So A is a function, and it's a function due to the fact that this relation, every every input has exactly one output. Now the second one right here, the second table, we're going to take a look. The input 3 has an output of 5. The input 3 also has an output of 9. So because you have two different outputs for the same input, the second table here does not represent a function. And so this is not a function because the input 3 has two different outputs. Taking a look at 2, identifying the domain and range of the following functions. So the domain value are the collection of all the inputs, and the range is the collection of all the outputs. So in other words, a domain, in an ordered pair, the domain are the first numbers here. Oops, sorry. They're the first ones in the ordered pair. So the 3 is a domain, the 8 is a domain, 10 is part of the domain, and 0 is part of the domain. Now, I'm not going to write a range of numbers because this represents discrete data. So our domain, I'm just going to go ahead and list all the values, starting with the smallest one, 0, 3, 8, and 10. So because it's possible to list all the values, I'm going to list all the values. If it was continuous data, I'd make a range. Uh, so the range of this data is all the output values, and the output values are the second values in the ordered pair. So that'd be the 4, the -5, the -3, and the 1. And so just like with the domain, we're going to list them, starting with the smallest one, -5, -3, 1, and 4. And for B, the domain, again, are the input values. So the 9, oops, it's going to be the 9, the 1, the 2, and the 6. And the range is the -7, the 3, the 3 halves, and the 12. So again, just listing the domain, starting with the smallest one, we have a 1, we have a 2, we have a 6, and we have a 7. And the range, just listing them all, we have a -7, we have a 3 halves, we have a 3, and we have a 12.